Amanda Balcazar. So excited.
Yeah, no. Merch peeps. Hey. Been a little while.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I think you were on in July. We did like a Christmas in July. So it's been almost a year.
Yeah. For good reason when it comes to, merch and all that kind of stuff, though. But I love still being able to get on and chat with you guys. And there's just so much that overlaps when it comes to anything that you're doing in the entrepreneur space. So
exactly. Well, Amanda, first of all, like she recommends the very best book. So if anybody likes to read, definitely ask Amanda for what book recommendations, because every time she mentions a book, I add it to Audible or Kindle.
Yeah.
And they end up being my favorite books. So
well, thank you. And you know what's so funny is years ago, so after college, when every, subject and books, I used to hate to read. Like I never read for fun ever. Mm-hmm. And then like in college, they shove them down your throat. And like when I was done with college, I was like, I'm totally done with books. I'm never reading again. And then it's funny. So my husband and I started like in the ecom business, we actually started selling books. Like that's how it started. And I still didn't read a book for like the first 2 years we were in that business. And then slowly I got turned on to personal development and realizing what a staple it has to be in your life if you're going to, to continue to grow. And especially, being self-employed entrepreneur, it's absolutely imperative. So it just became a habit. And with each, epiphany or awakening that you get from a book or an audiobook or a podcast, it starts to get addicting because there really are things in these books that are life-changing. I'd rather take somebody else's wisdom than my own. I mean, it's great to have your own experiences, right? But like, that's why we read books, is because it took them years upon years upon years to, put together this wisdom for you to just be able to divulge in however long it's going to take you, whether it's, a few days or a month. You can take in basically their life and really be able to look at that and kind of apply it to, what you're going through. So I love it.
I love it too. And it's like, I can't believe how just like my level of happiness has gone up from the amount of books I've read. Like, it's just, it's so amazing to hear people's stories and see like where they were and what they overcame to get where they're going. And like, it's just, I don't know, it's so inspiring and so great. So yeah, I read all the time.
Yeah. I can't wait until you two ladies publish your own books. So.
Well, but what's funny is so forever, like people would even say like, oh, you have a lot of stuff, would you want to share a book? I was like, absolutely not. Like I'm a talker. Like I am not going to sit there and write long form, blah, blah. But then, so I go to Podcast Movement, which I actually suggested you ladies go to. So hopefully you guys do go because I will. Yeah. So Podcast Movement last year was the first time that I went, and I just happened to step into one. They have different sessions. And I picked one with Chandler Bolt, who does, I think it's called Self-Publishing School. It's been a while since I revisited that. But anyways, he goes into discussing how simplistic it is once you break down writing a book, how like basically easy it could be. And I was like, wow, yeah, there's a book in my future. Not like tomorrow, but there definitely is. Because the way that he laid it out and how you can structure it. And then obviously you truly don't have to write it yourself. You can speak it and have somebody else write it for you. And so it just made it seem like this massive thing that I'm just like, absolutely never I could actually kind of see putting together something. So it would take a while for sure. But he makes it seem to where like now, even with you guys doing different things with like KDP and stuff, it just kind of levels the playing field where things are a little bit more in reach to be able to do that, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. Well, the last time Chris Green was on our show, he gave me a deadline of when to write a book by.
When's the deadline?
It already passed. Oh. And I didn't do it. It was by the end of last year. He's like, what would be like an easy deadline for you? And he tried to make it like really long and like, I still didn't do it. But his idea was like, just write a free book, almost like a lead magnet type thing. And it's like, we tend to think of a book as like, oh, it's going to be like this massive, like masterpiece, instead of being like, he's like, just do a top 10 list, like top 10 reasons to do merch. Slap it together in a book and that's it. So we'll see.
Like kind of what I thought before, and I think that this could be something as well, which could make people not so intimidated would be, if you're thinking about your topic of whatever you want to talk about, and how about in each chapter, each topic that you want to talk about, make that a mini book. So like, then that can be like your lead magnet, but then it's not just like, hey, this is just a lead magnet one and done. It's actually just a bite-sized step towards your entire book. So I think that could be cool to do. And then like throughout that, you're actually sharing, and of course you can revise it, slap it all together. And then you're like, holy cow, I actually wrote like this, huge.
I know, right? So this leads really well to talking about essentialism, because it's like, yes, we could do that.
Right?
But there's so many things that we could do. So tell us a little bit about what is essentialism, like in a nutshell.
Oh gosh. So I'm gonna put, there's not like, I don't know the definition. I didn't memorize the definition. But basically essentialism is, you really want to pare down to the things that are truly most important to you overall, and evaluate all of your actions that you do need to be going towards those things. And if it doesn't, you're out. Like, it's kind of like what's Marie, I can't say her name. Marie Kondo.
Marie Kondo.
Marie Kondo. Like, that's so simple, but anyways. So like, that's and her what is her thing called?
Oh, it doesn't spark joy.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's like when you're not simplifying, you are
like a minimalist.
Yeah, minimalist, exactly. So that's her version of minimalist in the physical world. This essentialism is the minimalist, like in your life, in all of your activities and stuff. So that's basically it. And that's really, it's funny. I did get to a part in the book where they were talking about, hey, listen, like legitimately, if you are going to do something and this doesn't, and I don't think they use the word spark joy. There was an example where they're like, if you don't say, heck yes. And I think he actually said the other word, but I don't know if you guys are explicit or not. So I'll behave. I'll try and behave. If you don't say heck yes, it's a no. Like, it's automatically a no. And so it's just very cool and liberating to go through and evaluate things in your life like that, because then you're eliminating that indecision as well. And it's like, dude, like, if this isn't like I'm all amped up about it, then you know what? I'm going to pass. And it's very freeing.
It is. And oh my gosh, I was reading the whole thing, and like, it's so weird because I feel like I'm so different than everyone else. Like, everybody says shiny object syndrome and all these different things. And I'm always like, but I always focus on one thing. Like, that's always easier for me. And so I was reading the Essentialism book, and I'm like, I do this. I already do this. I already only focus on what I want to focus on. And I realized that somewhere along the way, I realized that it's easier to say I can't do something than I won't. And that is what I do. So a lot of people have brought it to my attention and been like, Helen, why do you say you can't do this? Why do you say you can't do that? And so I tried to not say that and say I could do that.
Right.
And it always just felt like uncomfortable, where I'm just like, I don't want to be able to do that because I know I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's my defense mechanism, is I just say I can't, instead of saying I won't. And it was very interesting to me, because I'm like, wow, I wonder when I picked that up or when I started doing that. So I got to figure out like new language instead of saying I can't do something, to somehow say I won't. But people don't accept won't very well. I think people get offended when you're like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Well,
or at least
I think that there's ways. So we had actually, did you guys know Kate Erickson? She's John Lee Dumas's girlfriend. They're big in the podcast space, and she actually had come on our show. She just started a new one, which is called Ditch Busy. Mm-hmm. And it's very short. It's just herself. And she had, prior to that, she had a podcast that was like 5 years. She went on a strip, and then she just changed it a little bit, because before it was kind of doing an overview of their business, her and John's business. And then she was like, okay, well, I've done everything I'm going to do here. And so she switched over, and there's small snips. She's doing it 2 times a week right now. And they're basically like the ones that I heard, they're relatively short. And that was her whole thing. Like, she's really, really good at being in control of her time and being conscious of what she wants to do and focus on. She said it took her a while to get there, but that's what she felt compelled to do, because she sees so many people running around, pulling their hair out, feeling like they have to do all the things. And it's just like, like you're accepting this. Like you're saying like, yes, I'll do this stuff when you don't have to. And like it's like we're looking at our calendar, and if somebody says, hey, are you free on this night to do something? You're just basically like, well, I'm free. So yes, like, no, that's not how it works. Like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
So taking a step back. And I think that, so people that, if this is a habit of yours already and you find yourself like just saying yes to like all the things, because it is hard, like, you know, and I know people will say, you know, like as women, a lot of times like we're people pleasers, right? And like we want to help. And especially if you're a mom and you want to do something for school and you want to feel like you're contributing and you're just like want to like be the super mom, whatever. And like that's not what it's all about. So you want to be able to have a little bit of to give yourself a buffer. If you're used to always saying yes, you don't immediately have to make a decision. Realize that. Give yourself permission that you don't have to make a decision on the spot. So we say, you know, give yourself that a little breathing room if you need that, so that you're not always committing and then you're not feeling awkward saying no. Just say, you know what? Let me get back to you on that. Like, I have to check into some things. Like, and then maybe that'll help to give you composure. Like, how do I want to respond? And then the other thing that I feel is really necessary for women, well, anybody, I guess, but like women, moms, whatever, is that you don't feel like you have to also follow it up with an excuse. A no is okay. No means no. Or, you know what? No, I'm not going to be able to do that. Whatever. And you don't have to give a reason, you know, and I think that that's also very freeing. And again, it doesn't mean that we're selfish and we don't want to help people. It's like, there's a lot going on. And if you are feeling it, you're not going to be able to be your best at that time of whatever you're saying yes to anyways. So reserve your energy so that you can be your best for the things that you are going to dedicate your time to.
I think that is so true. I think that's something I need to practice. Like my way of saying no has been, I can't, instead of saying I'm not going to. So I need to practice just saying no, because I think it is damaging when you say you can't, because you start to believe you can't instead of like you're choosing not to. So
take your power back, girl.
I think I need to practice just saying, no, I'm not doing that right now.
And I'm even worse. My way of saying no is just yes. I say yes to everything. So I've
been trying so hard to tell her no. Like she said she wasn't going to go to Tennessee next week with her husband. And I'm like, no, you're going to go to Tennessee. Just stop whatever you're doing.
I know. I'm like, I've got too much to do and we've got this launch and and she's like, just go. And I'm like, I don't know if I can.
Because there's always going to be stuff to do. There's never going to be a good time.
So what are you going to Tennessee for? Just for some fun?
Yeah, my husband travels for work, and it just happened to be one. He's like, hey, do you want to tag along? And I was like, yeah, but I've got to get this KDP course going by March 1st. And so,
we'll definitely go for sure. Have a good time. Work it in. Weave it in.
So tell us a little bit about what your takeaways were from the book. Like, how have you been applying some of the things?
Oh my gosh. So it's just taking a step back with everything. So one of the things that I really, I never heard about mind mapping legitimately up until it was last like April or something. And so I had started using this program called MindMeister, and I think there's a free version or whatever. And so before I even read the book, my first kind of stepping into realizing how important it is to pare down what you have going on and really focus on, just the big picture of things, but then eliminating all of like the frivolous stuff. And that's when I put all of the stuff. I was like, why do I feel like we have like so much going on? Like, this is crazy. And this is right. It's really funny because this is right when there was, Jacob had come out with like his KDP thing, and I hadn't done anything with KDP. I barely had touched merch in a while, but we had all of our business. So we're in e-commerce. Okay. So we have 4 different Amazon accounts. We have one that's a wholesale, one that we're actually phasing out. We're going to be phasing out more because of this whole essentialism thing.
Nice.
We have our main pet brand, and then we have another brand. Okay. So we are working kind of like a toy type kids brand. And so we had all of this. And so we started simplifying everything but our main pet brand and really putting effort into that. But what happened was last like April or whatever that was, and I put on the mind map, like everything that we going on, like here's the main business, here's the income streams, here's where we have to like dedicate our time and what we want to do. And when I looked at that, I wanted to pull my hair out already. I was like, no wonder I feel the way I do. Why do I have I don't know any darn thing about KDP. Why am I looking at potentially doing KDP right now? And I wasn't looking for myself. I was going to use it as an experiment to have one of our VAs go through the course and just be like, you know what? I think that I need to get better at like managing projects and keeping myself out of them. So maybe I don't need to learn, right? Like I need to figure out how to just kind of let go and let something run. So that was my plan. Regardless, it was still going to take time for me to get a VA up and running, regardless if I learned all the things with it. So I was just like, no, I started deleting right on the program. I was like, nope. I'm telling you guys, that is one of the most amazing things that you can do. You can do it like I did it with our life on like the different aspects of what we have to do like on a daily basis. And then it just like, okay, if these things are not aligned with what you feel are most important and what you want to accomplish with your life, get rid of them. Like just eliminate them. And so that, I mean, again, that was kind of pre the book, but I think that that could really help because I utilize that like crazy now. Like if I'm thinking about something that I'm like, okay, I need to organize this and see what's going on and see what we have going on, I will use like the mind map and go through that. So I think that that can be tremendously helpful.
Awesome. Well, I think Christina knows I do this, right? Like we got together and we planned out the year and we were planning all these different things to do. And then as we're like implementing it, there were certain things where I was like, I can't do this right now. So we actually pared it down. I'm like, okay, some of these things we're going to start in 6 months because I want to make sure we can handle this second show a week. Like the second show a week was taking more time than I really thought because there's so much work to find that many more people. Oh, yeah. So I was like, because Christina's like, oh, well, we got to make sure we fill up that. I'm like, actually, let's just push it back a couple months. Like we're not going to focus on that right now because what's most important is the 2 shows per week and the course. So she's kind of working on the KDP course. I'm working on the 2 shows per week. And that's it. Like we eliminated everything else that we planned out. Like we pushed it back a couple months because we're like, this is too stressful right now. And it's taking away from what's most important.
That's awesome.
So it's so funny that it's like, that's just what I naturally do, but I didn't use the right language around it. Like I would feel bad about it. And I would be like, oh, I'm not good at multitasking, or I don't do enough, or everybody's better than me. And all these kind of like bad language around it. Instead of being
you're like the hero, you're like, damn, I could have wrote that book.
Yes, I read the book and I'm like, people don't already do this.
Well, it is funny though. Like so I do have to say, so it's really awesome that you are ingrained in like personal development and you read books regularly and you take in that stuff. Because what happens is when you're surrounding yourself with that stuff, like you said, you almost think like you talk to people about stuff and you're like, they don't know this. Like how, like people need help with this stuff. And I'm like, but you are running an amazing business. Like how do you not do this kind of stuff? And a lot of the times we just assume that everybody like knows what we know. Like we don't think it's a big deal because we do it regularly. And so it's just really awesome. It's pretty cool when you kind of realize like, hey, like that's, you know, I have, and there was some things that did align. Like I said, obviously doing like the MindMeister and all this kind of stuff, but I feel like this takes it to that next level. It really does. And it's just like, makes me put myself in check on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And it is so freeing because what it does is when I do that, between that and Atomic Habits, I know we were talking about that. Oh my gosh,
that book is so good.
Between that one and the Atomic Habits, like it really is, I keep saying the word freeing, but it is because it eliminates so much to where it opens up space for creativity. And one of the cool things that, so John and I, my husband and I work full-time together, and we definitely do different parts of the business, but of course we have to collaborate because it's really just us. So like figuring out how to run that, we're working on changing it, by the way, and hiring and, you know, kind of having managers like take over portions because I read the book Clockwork. I'm going to reference like a million books. But if you need a kick in the butt about that, about building a business and figuring out how to like systematize and so that you're not the person for everything and you don't own a job, Clockwork is a killer book. That started us on this path about a year and a half ago. But anyways, with him, we just started. We would do our weekly meetings, or we would like monthly meeting overview what we want to do. Then we can do weekly. We have to look at what we have going on our week and kind of decide who's doing what with my daughter. Where is it a heavy workload for you this week? Is it a heavy workload for me this week? Depending on if we're launching SKUs, like all these different things. Yeah. And so now though, like we just recently started, I was like, I'm pretty much like, okay, I want to get this business out of the way so that we can go and enjoy and like hang out and do whatever, because I can like work probably like all the time kind of, or just talk about work all the time. And I know like, thankfully he balances me out to not do that. So I actually decided to try something because I was like, you know what? These meetings end up being like super businessy, and sometimes they don't go awesome because we're like, it just depends on the mood and if we're tired or whatever. So we decided to just have fun with it and be like, you know what? There's going to be minimal structure. We have to talk about our week, but you know what? Bring up whatever. Bring up stuff about life. Let's talk about the business. It's been incredible just to be able to like just be creative and like talk about stuff and kind of wing it instead of being like super regimented about it. And there is a part in the book and we started this a little bit before I even got to the part, but it talks about play and how important play is, and how like children, because they have the freedom and they're not super like structured or whatever, that creativity allows them to be really incredible problem solvers. And when you don't have that imagination and you don't have that creativity for all these different situations, it actually can hinder you especially in like the entrepreneur space. And so people that like, play and let their, thoughts go all over the place can a lot of times think outside the box. And, I bet you, obviously Elon Musk has an incredible imagination.
Yeah.
You just think about that kind of stuff. And I think that's been pretty big for us because it can get stressful, right? Like if this is what we've been doing full time for so long. So if business isn't going, good, it's like that can be very stressful. So just to be able to integrate that and change it up a little bit and have fun, it's been awesome. Like there's just so many different things that now, again, it's not shiny object syndrome by any means. We figure out what we want to do and like pare it down, but it just, that creativity side is kind of like sparked. And so we're having fun with that.
Nice. That's
awesome. And it looks like your other half has joined us, and he also said that wine is also good it's vital for good meetings.
Absolutely. That is a significant part that can absolutely help with it. That was one of the staples that we said. I was like, okay, let's try this, have like a lot of fun. Oh, hey girl.
Laura's here. Hey Laura.
But yeah, so I was like, okay. And we were just joking like the first one. I'm like, we're going to have fun. It's not going to be super structured. Like, let's just kind of like wing it and talk about all the stuff we want to talk about instead of always being like, because what'll happen was we would talk and be like, okay, let's get back on topic. Okay, let's get back on topic. And it's like, it never let us like go like and do that. And now it's just like, we can just sit there and chat and it's best fun. We've gotten so much done, but wine plays a great part. I would suggest wine is a highly, highly suggested.
All right, Christina, we need to start having wine at our 9 a.m. meetings.
Yes. Do this on Sunday evening. So maybe that's
we do our meetings Monday morning.
You guys, yeah. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Oh, maybe not. Why?
Yeah, maybe not.
Drinking fun. Then you guys can go live, and then it'll be a whole new show.
Whole new show.
I love it. I love it.
Oh my gosh. Well, and first of all, thank you guys all for being in the chat. We have so many good people. Laura is Amanda's other half for the Hot Mess to Success podcast.
Other half. Yes, I'll show you like Hot Mess to Success. That's our podcast. We are so excited to be able to continue to bring that for what we started it with. So like that was birthed out of the One Funnel Away challenge that we did. And we weren't even planning. This was not planned. Like we were just like, hey, like we're kind of accountability partners-ish. Like, how are you going to publish? How are you going to publish? What are you going to publish about? And everything kind of like, we're like, we want to empower like women entrepreneurs. And so it took us a little while to kind of figure that out. Cause she's in Minnesota. like kind of knew of each other. We didn't know a whole lot about each other, but we kind of followed each other on social media and kind of like, I think, we're pretty aligned with everything. So we decided to jump in and do that. And the premise of the whole podcast is I go, and I know you guys have an opportunity. You guys have been doing some amazing meetups, right? And so when I started going to events, I started realizing that there's so much magic when you talk to somebody after that initial like, hey, nice to meet you, what do you do thing, and you're like, wow, this person's awesome, look at all that they've accomplished. And then the meeting after the meeting where we can, wine is good, whatever, you're sitting there and you're talking and then you get the story. And it's like, I know that there's a lot of women entrepreneurs out there that have so much self-doubt, that look at somebody that, has achieved, a levels of success and are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, how did she do that? How does she do it all? Blah, 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 whatever. And you talk to them, if you would really talk to these people, they're like, my, life is an SHIT show. Like, it's crazy. Like, you don't even want to see me on a daily basis, da, da, da. And it's not that anybody's like fronting by any means. It's just everybody's goes through stuff. Like, everybody has stuff in life. So it's like, wow, I've gotten so much like encouragement and just a different perspective on that, to where it's like, okay, it's very inspirational, even those like close conversations. And I'm like, there's a lot of women that don't have the opportunity to travel and get that, camaraderie, that one-on-one, or that backstory. They're seeing these people on some of the, whether they're on a podcast or they get interviewed on a live, and they are an author, and you get to hear all the accolades. But it's not that messy middle part that is very powerful. And every single person that I met that had, awesome success was like, yeah, and man, I can remember I almost gave up right before this happened because XYZ. And so I'm like, God, there might be women that are in that spot right now that if they heard that, they just be able to keep going through, and then boom, it's like, like a flip of a switch or whatever. So I'm like, that's what I think we really need to bring out. And so that's what we're doing. And we've done a couple things because obviously we were totally new to this space. But that was really our mission and our goal, really just to bring it and to highlight, these amazing women entrepreneurs as well. Right. So whatever they're doing, be able to share and highlight what they're doing and how they're impacting the world. But, that's one of the things that Laura and I were just talking about recently. We're like, yeah, that's the premise of this. And we really want to get back to having those solid interviews to where we talk about that story aspect of it. And then obviously afterwards we can share what the person has, is doing and accomplishing. But I think that just can be so powerful when you're like, wow, I can't believe she was able to make it through this. And, basically I'm not alone type thing. So
and I think it's amazing how many people have such amazing strengths and they don't see it at all. Like, they have no clue at all.
No, I know. You're sitting here, you're like got essentialism down on pat, and you're like, wow, I didn't even know this. Like, this is
and then not only did I not know it, I thought it was a weakness. And I thought it was one of my worst things.
Well, and that's what people know. Here's the cool part is thinking about, and that's why, like, again, I feel like there's so much, and I don't know why we feel so compelled to take on all the things. Like, I don't know where that pressure comes in, but then again, I'm like, you guys could be like, oh, society pressures us. I'm like, stop. Then don't like, you're the one giving them permission. Like, take your control back.
And we're already entrepreneurs. So it's like, who cares? We're already going against the grain anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's been one of the most eye-opening things doing this show is how many people I reach out to have absolutely no clue that they are amazing. Like, no clue at all.
Awesome.
Like, no clue. And I'm trying to tell them and they like don't believe me. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll move on to the next person. But it's like, and then I circle back and sometimes they say yes the second time. Yeah. But it's very widespread that people don't know that they're good at things. Like, they just have no clue at all.
And the cool part about, and I think that's the other thing when you go to these events, and the other reason why we want to bring out is, like, again, when you know somebody or you see somebody that is sharing content or doing something, like you ladies, you guys are up on a pedestal for a ton of people. I know it, right? So like, it's like you're like, oh my gosh, I would love to be like XYZ. And then you meet them and you're like, you're a real person.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
I'm humble. And it was like the same thing with like Kate Erickson. It was so funny, that gal that I mentioned, because that's how we had actually learned how to do podcasting, was from them. And so when we saw them at like the event, like they were like, I mean, they keynote all over the place. And we were like, oh my gosh, like total like fangirl, whatever. And Laura's like, we're going to have her on our podcast. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's give that a little bit of time, because we had just launched, like we had like 2 shows or something.
Yeah.
And she came over, she's like, hey, and we're like talking, like that's so cool. And then again, just realizing like, oh, they're a person. Like, and then once you can see yourself in that person, it's like, I can do that. And that's the type of belief that we want to be able to help, women have, and, see in themselves. So
yeah. And it's men too. There are men that also say no to being on the show because, or just in general, because they don't have, well, there's all different reasons. So I don't want to speak for everyone. Some people just, they're too busy doing something else. But there's a significant number of people that they are afraid to go on the show. And it's men and women. And then there's also a significant amount of people that are not afraid to go on the show, but they think they have nothing to offer. They say, sorry, I don't have enough to talk about. And I'm like, I wouldn't be reaching out to you if you didn't.
Right.
So it's one of those two things. And then, of course, some people probably just don't want to for other reasons. But it was eye-opening, because it's one of those things you just assume, like, if these people, if you're looking up to them, they must know that they're special, and they don't. There's only a very few that are like, oh yeah, of course, like, of course I know I'm special. I'll come on the show. But most people, I mean, I keep saying 75. I think it's more like 90% of people are like, no, I can't because of this, and this. And it's like, you don't know how much you could help people.
Maybe they read the book Essentialism and they're like, I'm just saying no.
Yeah, exactly.
That.
I'm sure there's a lot of people where it's like that.
Don't read this book into not come on Merch Money, my friends. Get on here.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's just it's eye-opening, because it's you see it in person too. When you meet people in person, you feel like, oh, you're going to be the one nervous talking to people, but no, it's the other people that are nervous.
It's crazy.
So it's kind of just a universal human trait where we're just like somehow think everyone's better than us, or knows more than us, or has more to offer, or somehow more special.
Or doesn't have the struggles. And that's what I love about Amanda's show, is that, people reach out to us and they're like, oh, it must be so easy for you guys. And it's not. Oh my gosh, it's a hot mess over here too. And if you only knew how many things fail miserably before we find success, it's like, I love that you're showing that part of the process.
So. And that's one of the things too, is that I've been talking with people about this lately, because I have like a couple of little mastermind groups with some of my ecom friends, and people are talking about like their passion and what different angles they want to go into, and different things like that. And I think, and I hope, because again, if people are doing merch, KDP, print on demand, I'm getting into being an entrepreneur, solopreneur, that type of thing, and trying to juggle all of these things. And they're like trying to figure out, my passion. Well, the thing is like, I think the biggest aspect is being able to appreciate and enjoy the process and the journey. And so like, that's kind of the thing. If you're looking at this and you're like, just embrace that, because it's going to be a process. There's going to be those ups and downs, and being able to give yourself that grace to learn through that and understand, like you said, that there are going to be, it's inevitable that you are going to have struggles. And it's just, the people that are most successful get up faster. That's it. They have the same struggles they've probably encountered more. That's why. And then they just get up faster. They don't let those things keep them down. And so just get back at it, and keep going. So.
Yeah. And I think it's also the perspective of like what it takes. Because it's like some people, they hit like a roadblock, like one. And it's like, oh, like I must not be good at this or whatever. And other people are like, what? That was like Monday for me. Like now it's Tuesday. Like they're on to the next thing, and it didn't even like phase them. Right. So I think like one of the things that helped me a lot was, I've mentioned it several times, I had an accountability partner in FBA. It was Jonathan Cleater. And it was very helpful for me to see like what he did in a day. Like we would talk and he'd be like, oh, I did this today. And I'd be like, oh, I did this today. And it really helped me realize, like, okay, I am not thinking about how much it really takes to be successful in FBA. Like,
Yeah.
I would think I could go to the store, fill one cart, come home and pack one box, and somehow that was going to be enough.
Right.
And then it's like talking to him, I'm like, oh, okay. This is like what he did in the first 10 minutes of the day. Like, this is what it's actually going to take. And it really helps you realize, like, okay, I'm not thinking about this correctly. Like, there's a lot more that it takes. And so I think that that's something that we all need to realize. Like, we might think like, oh, this person's succeeding on merch, thinking like they're just better than us. And it's like, no, they literally did 100 designs, or they researched for 3 hours, or they whatever. They did a massive action to have the results that they're having. They didn't just like do one design this week and that's it.
Yeah. It's funny. I was looking at past, like, again, being in different aspects of mostly Amazon. Excuse me. Sorry. Hang on. I had a tickle in my throat. Of mostly Amazon for the past 14 years. And so there's been different things that we've done. We did, resale books, kind of like the thrifting aspect of it. That's how we started. Then there's, RAOA, then there's wholesale and private label. And what I found is I can remember, and this is, now I'm seeing it kind of universally, almost in a lot of things in life, is that there's kind of like a 3-year, especially if you're in something to where you're selling something online, is whether it's seasonal or not. I feel like there's a 3-year kind of process before like you're like really freaking good. And I think people don't, and it's almost a switch. And I don't really necessarily understand it. I can just recall it was with books. I felt like I was just going through the motions and, whatever, we were making money and we were doing stuff, but we weren't like necessarily good. I didn't think like I knew like my stuff. Yeah. And then it was weird. It was like, we were 3 years in and I was just like, wow, like we just hit a groove. And it was twofold. It was, we were, going through, and at this point in time, we knew the different places to go to get inventory. And then we also knew what to expect when we were selling inventory. So it was just that learning curve and giving yourself that 3 years. And there's so many people that are on these platforms that want that success in 3 months. And it's just like,
or 3 days.
Right. And it's like, my goodness, now here's the thing. Like, I can tell you that if anybody has been on, merch full time for like 3 years and like dedicated their time to that, it's like that, Malcolm Gladwell, when he talks about 10,000 hours of mastery, like supposedly that's totally debunked now anyways. He kind of used whatever, but I still think it's a great thing for us to think about.
A benchmark kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Come on. So like, we're not like, I don't like check out my hours.
10,000th hour. It's all going to magically happen.
Right. But I mean, exactly. It goes to show you that. But once it is, and once you hit that mastery, it's almost like, oh my gosh. And you've separated yourself so much from everybody else that literally gives up. Like most of the people give up way down here. But most
people don't even ever start. They talk themselves out of it before they start. So they're in the groups for months or years. And then you realize they never uploaded a shirt. You're like,
or people that have been like, oh my gosh, I've been doing merch for like 2 years and I haven't. Well, no, you haven't really been doing it. It's like
you've been listening to other people do it for 2 years.
You've been, you have an account, but here's the deal. And that's one of the things too, being really conscious of your activity and being very activity focused, not results focused. And I'm sure you guys chat about that, but I think that's just huge. And we started doing that even
now. She's talking about atomic habits, guys.
Am I switching it back? But that's what we
but that's so true.
Overlies. But I can remember like even with like we were doing like used books and stuff, and it got to the point to where our volume, we could kind of predict our sales based on how many units we're selling. And even though these are just like random books that had a constant repricer, so we never really knew, but we could just estimate, hey, if we send in, 400 units a week, blah, 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 like this is how we're going to be able to, and after a while, the income did stave off. So that's all we did focus on. We didn't look at the sales. We focused on how can we get those 400 units in if that's what we want to do. So that's kind of the way. And I know there's not direct correlation, but there will be. If you go and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do on a consistent basis, it'll compound. So I think that that's something that people really, really need to hone in on. And it's in a similar fashion to like what people in like their health or if they're training, like you can't go and say, okay, well, I ate really well today, let's go check the scale. That's not how it works. So like you have to focus, you have to figure out what is going to drive you in those moments so that you can have that delayed gratification and get those results later.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, delayed gratification. We could go so many different directions. We only got 15 more minutes, but that's a whole nother thing. People want instant results instead of delayed gratification. So that's a whole nother thing. Another thing is just overcoming obstacles and problems. I used to have like really bad depression and really like everything seemed like this insurmountable hard thing to go through, like just everything. Like you'd have one bad thing and it was like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. And one thing that really helped me was Tony Robbins. He was explaining problems and he was like, a problem is like a set thing. If this problem is hard for you, it's because you haven't become a bigger person. It was more like problems are easier the bigger of a person you become. Yeah. It's not the problem, it's you. Like if you become a bigger, stronger person, you're going to be able to handle this. Yeah. Like it helped me realize like, it's not the problem, it's me. Like I need to figure out how to be able to handle one tiny thing going wrong in my day. Absolutely. And then as you be able to handle one tiny thing, one person looking at you the wrong way, one tiny thing going wrong, then you can handle the next thing and the next thing. And all of a sudden, like things that I just feel like are just a normal course of a day, to someone else, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to quit merch. I have to quit this. I have to quit that. And it's just like, no, these are just normal problems you're going to encounter.
I think that's the thing with, so the Amazon platform in general, I know that there's a lot of people that get frustrated with it as well. And I think again, because, people will be like, oh, it's not, stable or this, that, or the other. And I'm like, okay, so I've been involved in all different aspects of Amazon. We've actually been suspended, not just from our Amazon account, but also for merch. So like there was like, that was when we first got started and different things. So like, but with that, and yes, those are things that were relatively devastating. Both of those times happened in like the worst times. This was not a brush us moment. It was very serious, but like it made us stronger in this space. And like, I don't know many people in general that have had a business or relied on a platform or whatever you want to say, have been able to, because it's transition. It's like going through different jobs and different businesses when you transition to different business models. Yeah. And so being able to do that and transition through that and not have any like major catastrophic, losing a business or, huge financial, devastations or anything for 14 years on, I don't know. Yeah, I do understand that it can be a little bit unpredictable sometimes and unfair, but I mean, is that anything? It's like, say, oh, get a safe, secure job. Well, okay. Well, in a similar fashion, like, I don't really think that there's anything that is 100%. Stuff happens, life happens. And if it does, like you said, you have to figure out how to be able to deal and cope with it. And not just like, get all, I mean, it's the same thing with, people that had put their money like in the stock market and stuff and out of their control. And now then it was unstable. And then there's real estate. And you know what? There's going to be a time when that's going to, the market is going to go down. It's just going to happen. And it's just cycles. So it's like, it's just how, like you said, how you prepare yourself to be able to deal with it and to cope with it. And definitely there's times where it's just so funny. Stuff will happen. And I was like, do you know we would have been freaking out? Now we're just like handle it and move on. Like it's like
I love it. That's my favorite thing on the last 6 years of becoming an entrepreneur is like what used to be hard is just like it doesn't even register in my brain that it's hard. It's like it's just normal. Like you can handle so much more and just the possibilities are so much more. You don't let things like that bother you.
Right. Totally.
You don't take it personally. You're just like, no, this is just how business is. It's not like I failed or I'm so bad. It's like, no, this is just normal.
Yeah.
So, well, I think you're amazing. It's been so inspiring to see your progression. And I remember when you were going through the merch,
situation.
And it's like you just handle everything so well and just keep rolling, keep learning, keep sharing your experiences as you go along, and it's so helpful to everyone else. So.
Well, thank you. And you ladies, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Congratulations on bringing out a course and staying the course with this. This is again, something that is incredible to like you said, laser focus on. And that's, again, something that is a superpower. So be confident and say, you know, I mean, with what you have and your priorities going on, that, you know what, no, this doesn't fit with, you know, what I'm doing right now, or, you know, this isn't. So anyways, I love that you guys are so focused, and you know, it's just continuing to grow, and it's awesome to be able to, you know, watch the journey. And you guys have so much, like you said, you have so much going on too, like different countries and, you know, all that stuff. It's incredible. And you've traveled all over the place. And like you said, you guys doing meetups, and it's wonderful. So I'm sure the entire community is just greatly appreciative. And if they're not, because I get super fired up about when people like say, oh, you remember?
I remember you were standing up for us.
You know what? It's funny because that's one of the things that I don't get like upset about a good amount of things, but people that feel that they're entitled drive me crazy. Like, you guys are doing, there's so many things, like, people are hopping on here right now. You guys are dedicating your time, which, like you said, it takes a lot. I know, like, we put together stuff too. It's a lot to be consistent. And you guys, how long have you guys been running the show again?
It'll be 2 years in April.
It's you guys. That's like a freaking lifetime. Like, it is a very, like, I look back and I was like, dude, we just started in August, because there's a lot of planning that goes into it. You feel like you've been doing it forever, right? Yeah. And so it just really is frustrating to me that people come and consume, and then they want to like criticize. I think constructive criticism can be amazing. I think that if somebody like brings it up in a respectful way because they want to help you, you know, progress your message and continue to share your content, because that's what you guys are doing, that's fantastic. Because again, this is free. So it's like, you guys, like, you need to be, you know, be thankful. And you know what? Then I don't know. It gets me kind of fired up, because it's a lot of work, you guys. Like, it really is.
I told the same thing to Yang, because Yang brought up something similar about like haters or different things. And I told him the same thing, where it's like, the reason it doesn't bother me as much is because I remember what it feels like to be in a low vibration like that. Like, I used to be very depressed. I don't think I would write things, like, I wouldn't write mean comments or be mean to people. But I would think it. Yes. I would be just thinking everything was terrible. Everything was hard. They probably have some special thing. That's why they're able to be successful.
And good for you. That's why you're such an amazing leader on this show. Yeah. That's huge. That's huge to be able to do that. Like, yeah, that's something that is just awesome to be able to see the other side of it. And your response was so graceful too. And I was just like,
there are people that get out of it eventually. I mean, a lot of people don't, but I'm one of the people that got out of it eventually. So I totally understand how people feel, because it's frustrating if you feel like you're not able to do something. So you feel like, oh, it must be that they're just more lucky than me, or haven't had the struggles that I've had. It's hard to realize, like, no, I'm the problem here. Yeah, exactly. It's hard for people to come to realization of that.
Private message me and I'll suggest a book that you can read. Like, we'll work on this. We'll work on it.
But it is amazing if people can make it their way through all the different levels of, feel, because you'll feel so much better. Yeah. Like, if you can just start to appreciate people and realize that, like, that they are doing amazing things, and not compare yourself, and you just end up feeling so much happier.
And it all stems from personal development. It really does. We're not inherently like this skilled and minded. Like, it takes growth. It takes a lot of work, and it's not instinctual. Like, all this stuff is like, it takes time, and it's little by little. I know, like you said, you're a big fan. You just have to find the people that like speak to you to help you like bring that out of you. And I know you said one of your people and mine as well was like Ed Milet. Like, I really enjoy his stuff. There's just so many, I can't even say his name correctly. Is it Tom Bilyeu or something like that? Bailey?
You said it perfectly. Tom Bilyeu.
There we go. There's just so many people. Like, one of my like now like girl crush type things is Brene Brown. Wow. Yes. She's very, strong chicken that aspect. So it's just like all these different things. This is not just of our own doing outside of Helen, who should have wrote Essentialism. But everybody else needs to get the books themselves.
I had my own set of problems. Yeah.
She's got other stuff that she's working on. But so I just would really encourage people to dig into that. Like that's, again, it's just not something that's super natural. It's not in our instincts, right? So need that personal development.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything that you really want to talk about that we haven't covered yet? I know we're getting towards the end, and anybody you want to shout out in the comments or anything?
Oh gosh, I should look. I'm so bad at that. My husband.
There's so many good people. I saw Matt earlier.
Friends.
We got Strugglepreneur here.
So you want to talk about? I'll give a shout out to Matt real quick because I had shared with him. We've been going through trying to really figure out kind of like the next thing in regards to what type of very intentional content that we would want to share. And so we're really trying to be strategic and figure out, okay, what is it that we would want to do? Talking with my husband, like, again, we have our e-commerce brands, and I don't think we want to like put out a course on that stuff. And so we're just like, okay, what do we want to do? So I was tossing something out there to Matt, and this goes along with Essentialism, which is, I kind of wanted to share, is that he was basically like, so what is, the big end, like part of it? Like when you're like looking to construct a business, like we had just went to Funnel Hackers and it was incredible, but Tony Robbins was just, I did not expect him to get so like strategic business wise. He was like, he talked about that basically being like, what is your, business strategy? And then with that, like an exit strategy. And I've been we've been in this space for a long time. When we started, there's probably a lot of you guys that's not how you started. You start merch and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a thing. Oh my gosh, KDP. Oh my gosh, this is an actual business. Now what do I do? Because I didn't start it the way like typical businesses start. So we were like sharing with him, and he like just basically asked like us, so what does that look like? I know that you guys are focused on your pet stuff. What does that look like at the end? Like if you want to build up a business, a true business, that's going to, potentially be able to run without you, so that you're the ones that's overseeing everything, and then like potentially like exit, because regardless whether you want to exit or not, looking at it when you start something as, what if I do? Let's structure the business that way. And I was like, thank you for that. And it could have went one of two ways. It could have been like, hey, this is something that we could be fun and passionate about, or hey, we can see this as being an empire that we want to focus on. And so I told Matt, I was like, it's number 2 right now. I'm like, we are so amped up about this, but we wouldn't have thought that way about it. And if it wouldn't have been, if I'm like, you know what, I don't know if I want to go all the way to the finish line with something like this, then it's a no. Then it's not like we're just sitting back being like, hey, like there's so much that we can do, and there's no lack of ideas. It's all lack of execution when it comes to this kind of stuff. So there's so many ideas out there. There's so many different ways. It's just how, and there's not necessarily right or wrong. It's how you're going to do it, and then how you're going to execute on it, and then commit to it. So I thought that was really, really cool. And hopefully, again, if people, I'm going to throw out another book. But the reason, because it was like with the exit plan, when I never really thought about it. And there's a book called Built to Last. Built to Sell. Built to Sell. That's what it's called. There's 2 different books, sorry, but Built to Sell. And it basically like talks about that. It's kind of like a parable, and it's really great. And it's eye-opening. If you guys have been in a space for a while, building a business, like, and if anybody's working, whether it's merch, whatever it is, and you're doing this as like a full-time thing or starting to generate a significant income, you need to start digging into this stuff, because it can be significant. I know people that have, I don't know if whether encouraged or not, there have been people that have been able to sell their businesses. You structure properly, you can sell your merch business. We cannot right now, because it's tied to our freaking FBA account. That's our FBA account. So that's a nightmare, but hopefully they can fix it.
I actually originally thought I would sell my merch business. But then I got more and more excited about Merge Money and everything. And I'm like,
I wrote that book too. Are you telling me you didn't even read the book? She's like, I structured my business properly to exit. I'm very good at saying, no, I can't do anything essential. So she's like, you don't even need personal development. What the heck?
I needed personal development. That's for sure. Oh my God. It was bad.
Like you said in other
But I did that's what was so funny is I really was planning on selling it. And then I just got really liking Merge Money. That's what kept me. And so I haven't sold it.
You guys, look at this group. You kept Helen in the jam. That's why she's here.
Yep. Because I actually was doing FBA and I was thinking like I'll grow merch and merch will be something easy to sell like once you build it up to a certain level. Yeah. But then I just got more and more where I liked it. And I'm like, never mind.
Is it tied to your FBA account too? Like your buyer's account, is it separate?
It is tied to it, but I was kind of thinking like eventually I would want to get out of never thought FBA would be permanent. Like
that's the thing. I was like, but if I'm like, well, let's figure it out. There will be a way, I'm sure. Like this is not going to be something that it's just right now. It's probably, and maybe you could potentially do it right now. It's just not worth our time right now to jump through the hoops and kind of figure it out. But yeah, I mean, because there is probably going to be a time when we do want to exit our main brand. So it's like, okay, how does that work? And I'm not just going to give them a merch account for the heck of it. Like, here you go. Yeah. So anyways, I will deal with that when we get there. There's plenty of smart, business brokers that know all about this stuff now, because this is it's a hot thing. So, and that's the thing too, you guys. I mean, look at this, like even from the get-go, like Helen's thinking about potentially selling, like this is serious. Like this is, you can actually build this up and potentially be able to, it takes a little bit to be able to, sell it. But yeah, it's a big asset that you're building up.
Yep. Empire flippers is what I tend to listen to. I always hear their stories of all the there's so many different kinds of businesses and so many different things. So I was thinking like you sell one, then you get this chunk of money and you try something different. Yeah. I was kind of thinking I would go the private label route, but then like sell it and then do a private label brand, which who knows, maybe I will someday. But for now, I like what we're doing.
I was gonna say, you guys are doing an incredible job. You have the course coming out March 1st. Yay.
Yeah. Christina was literally developed training for her job. She was a corporate HR. So she was in charge of the training of the whole company. I'm like, are you kidding me?
You're like, let's go get it. Yeah, that's a big thing. Like being able to organize and teach and walk people through stuff that's a superpower in itself. So you guys are definitely a dynamic duo. I love it.
Yeah. And I know to just be like, okay, I'll learn in bits and pieces, but you handle like you are way better at it right now. Cause it was so funny. We were giving like a webinar as like an added bonus. And my idea of a webinar was basically just going on live kind of like this and explaining how to do something. Her idea of a webinar was like very detailed. Like you should see it. It's like amazing what she does in a webinar. I'm like, okay, I need to up my standards of what a webinar is.
No, and like you said, I mean, you guys, I love too, and that's great that you guys have been able to, find your strengths. And was that was that calculated really, or did it just kind of like mesh? Did you think that
it was somewhat calculated in the fact that I talked to Brianna and I was like, these are the things I'm not able to do right now. Like, how can we do these things? I'm not the right person for this, and this. And I was talking to Brianna and I'm like, how can we find someone to do this? Or what could I do? Because it's not working. Yeah. And she was like, well, how about we talk to Christina? She'd be great at all those things.
That's awesome.
That's basically how it happened.
That's amazing. And so have you had, so I'm going to give you another book. Have you looked into rocket fuel? Have you heard about that book?
I heard about it. I haven't read that one.
Very good. I mean, it's really, really good for partnerships. And like, that was very eye-opening. It was just something that recently I had actually listened to Audible past couple months. And it was just eye-opening to say like, wow, I get it. I understand. Like, this is something that I've been working with my husband for 14 years. I understand now how we work and how there are parts that we need to outsource. Like there's different things that we really shouldn't be doing anyways, but also appreciating the differences that the other person brings. And obviously you guys work incredibly well together, but it just talks about like really being able to figure that out and being synergistic. And so that's a really good one too. So I don't know how many books you mentioned today, but we could go all day.
At least 4 or 5. Right. We'll have to like do a replay and be like, guess how many books were mentioned.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Gosh. That's funny. It was appropriate when I used to have the bookshelf behind me. I mean, like, that's a lot of books. I'm like, I mean, I've had them for quite some time, but yeah, we have a pretty awesome library built up. And yes, we have read one of us has read, pretty much all of the books, and sometimes more than once, because I mean, you read them, you're a different person. That's the thing about personal development. If I go back and I read a book a year ago, I just had to pull out Clockwork again recently. And I was like, wow, there's so much that like now I'm taking out and applying now. Cause I did like the first parts that they said. And like, here's like the secondary parts that it didn't necessarily connect with me so much because I didn't have that first part before. So when you're a different person, you take it in differently. So yeah, I highly encourage those ones that you were like, wow, this was a great book before. You read it now and you're like, you're proud of yourself for like executing on some of the things that, was you wanted to. And then, being able to implement the additional things that might not have totally connected with you the first time.
Great advice. And that's what I'm doing with the quotes in the morning. Like in the morning, I post a quote in Merge Money. Yes. Those are all books I've read before, but I'm reading again to find these quotes, and they're sticking better, or things are coming out to me more than they were the first time that I read it. So.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I keep doing that. I keep seeing, because I get to see those all the time, and I love those different quotes. And even like some of the ones that I have read or I haven't read. And then I'm like, oh, well, that's on my list because that looks like a good quote. Now I need to add another book to me.
Yes.
Wow. Yes, well, thank you so much for coming on today. It was so fun to catch up. And,
yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. And Christina, have a blast in Tennessee because you're going.
Okay.
You get to decide. This is what we're doing. This is not, you cannot say no to this one. No.
No. Only because we know she wants to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate it, ladies.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching. Yes. And make sure you follow Amanda. She has Hot Mess to Success podcast, Facebook page, all of that.
Yes. Thank you guys. Yeah. Laura does that. Thank goodness. Cause I am like social media, like, no. So she's like the queen. So you want to talk about being able to like pair with people, like Laura's amazing. She runs our social media. It's awesome. So yeah. Thanks for that. Otherwise, it'd be like crickets for me. I'd be like, oops, sorry.
Back again, guys. It's been a month.
Right, exactly. Still here. Hey.
But, all right. Well, thank you guys. Have a good night. We'll see you all on Thursday.
Awesome.